Evaluation is a very important component of your child's special education program. And there are a couple of ways in which you can evaluate the child and the times that you are supposed to evaluate a child. The one we're going to talk about now is the triennial. And just as the word suggests, tri, 3, you are minimally to evaluate the child every 3 years. But let's talk more about that, Jen.
And I love that you use the word minimally, because very often the school district is required by law at least every 3 years to evaluate once a child's determined to be eligible for special education services. Then at least every 3 years the school district has to reevaluate the child to determine whether they remain eligible for special education services, to evaluate in all areas of suspected disability, and that's important because a child's needs change over time. Sometimes what seemed at age 5 to be this type of a disability is looking more like a different type of disability at age 8. And so the whole point is we're reassessing the child, making sure they remain eligible or ruling out eligibility if they are no longer eligible. And then, of course, evaluations drive programming. So that's supposed to happen at least every 3 years by law. Here's the kicker. Many school districts will say to parents who want their child evaluated more frequently than that. Sooner. Something's changed in the child's education, something's changed in the child's performance, behavior. Whatever the reason, a parent may say, and often does, I think it's time to reevaluate. And very often the response they get is, oh no, his triennial isn't due until 2014 or whatever the date is. And then the parent accepts that, and then it's another year and a half or 2 before the evaluation's done, and now you've missed that window of opportunity to intervene if in fact the evaluations needed to be done sooner. So it's important that parents understand that both school districts and parents can request reevaluation sooner than at every 3 years if necessary. And that doesn't mean you have to do all of the evaluations that the school might do at a triennial. So, at a triennial evaluation, you may do 6 or 7 evaluations. An occupational therapist may do an evaluation, speech therapist, physical therapist, school psychologist, various different pieces. At some point in the middle, you may just say, I think the speech needs aren't quite being met, and I'd just like us to update the speech evaluation. It doesn't mean you have to do everything. But you should know that you have the opportunity and the right to ask for testing in between those 3-year marks.
Well, when a parent asks me, what is a triennial evaluation? To put it into very simple terms, I like to say that, A, the school district has an obligation to see if the child remains eligible. So you have to evaluate in order to determine that. But more importantly, if the child, well, not more importantly, but just as important, I should say, if the child does remain eligible, you need that new set of information in order to program for the next 3 years. You've got to continue to get updated information so that you can program for the next 3 years. And also, that information might say to the team, gee, this child has really come a long way in 3 years, or, ooh, maybe not so much.
We're not seeing any change in these scores in 3 years. That might be a sign that the intervention that we're using is not the appropriate intervention as well. So one thing that I come up against, and I know you do too, is evaluations have many purposes. One of them is to determine eligibility, but they have many purposes, including programming decisions, including progress or lack thereof, data towards that, all sorts of useful tools that we get out of evaluation. So it's not just to determine eligibility.
No, that's the point I wanted to make.